this must be the longest interview you've ever done, Sean, without me mentioning Val Venis. Basically, we're almost an hour in. I've not even brought up Val Venis once yet. But how did you come to the attention of the WWF? Was it through CMLL or some other way?
So ultimately, it was through Victor Quinones. Bruce Pritchard was, I guess, head of talent relations at the time in WWF. And Bruce had come down to Mexico City with Victor Quinones to take a look at the talent in Mexico. And I guess they were going to try and work out a deal, bring up some Mexican talent into WWF at the time. And they were looking at,
was this Super Astros? I'm sorry to interrupt. Was this for the Super Astros show that they were looking to do?
That came a little bit after, like after our first meetings, like that. I was already in WWE when they came out with Astros. But this was the first meeting where Bruce Pritchard and Paco Alonso would really have any kind of discussions whatsoever. And so what happened is Bruce had talked to Victor Quinones. They worked out a deal where I would come up for a tryout. He had seen some video of my work, really liked it. And so they flew me out to Des Moines, Iowa to do a tryout match in front of Vince. And so I did a dark match, and I believe it was Henry Godwin that I worked. And so we literally flew in from Mexico City into Des Moines, Iowa. I did the dark match, and I had to fly right back to Mexico City to continue working. And I went back to Mexico City, and a few weeks later, Bruce Pritchard comes down with Victor Quinones and to work out a deal with Paco Alonso for some Mexican talent, but he also wanted to come down and have some discussions with me as well. So we all went out for dinner. And that's really where, you know, they started with the drinking and the food, and the discussion started flowing. And out of those discussions, I guess a deal was solidified between Paco Alonso and Bruce Pritchard for some Mexican talent to come in and out of WWE at the time. And it was shortly after that, probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of months after that, that I went up to WWE TV studio. Edge was there for that first camp they did. Edge was there. There was a bunch of guys were there. And so we went there, spent 2 weeks just training there, and I ended up signing the contract. But I still had about 6 months left in Mexico. And this goes back the same deal. When I went from Puerto Rico to Mexico, Vince and Paco Alonso, you know, I was getting 2 paychecks for the first 6 months. I was getting WWE paycheck. And the only thing with me that was airing a WWE program were the vignettes that were playing for weeks on end, yet only took me 2 days to film. So while every week they were playing a new vignette, I'm still wrestling in Mexico, running away from Raul de Jalisco Jr. And so it was fantastic getting 2 paychecks and, you know, working one territory. And
with the paychecks, wow. I'm sorry to interrupt again. With the paychecks, now, was this WWF, was this just a retainer, or had they signed you to a downside guarantee proper contract?
Downside guarantee.
Right.
Yeah, downside guarantee at that point. So even though I was getting the downside weekly check because I wasn't working for WWE at the time, I still was wrestling in Mexico. But I was getting, you know, that downside weekly guarantee on top of what I was getting paid in Mexico. You know, I was pretty happy about that. And so anyways, I finished up in Mexico. And while I was in Mexico is when Vince Russo came up with the Val Venis character. And so they called me at 7 o'clock in the morning, Vince Russo and Vince McMahon. It was 7 in the morning, Mexico City time. So I'm guessing it was about 9 or 10 in the Northeast, up in New York, Connecticut area. And he calls me and Vince says, "Hey, we got this character. His name's Val Venis, and the last name is spelled Venis." Now, when he spelled out the last name for me, I'm kind of thinking it's a weird way to spell Venus, but whatever. And then he says, "Now, Val Venis was a former film star turned pro wrestler." And the first thing that pops into my head is Jesse Ventura, Hollywood Hogan. You know, this stuff's already been done. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going to rehash a Jesse Ventura thing. Like that just wasn't going to, that's not something I was willing to really, I mean, I was willing to really take anything they're going to pay me to do, but I wanted something that's going to entertain the fans in a new and different way. And so it just didn't sit right with me. But then a few seconds after he had mentioned that Val Venis was a former film star turned pro wrestler, he goes, actually, Val Venis was a former adult film star turned pro wrestler. And I went, okay, now that's never been done. And of course the wheels start turning, right? And I'm thinking, oh, and I'm a young guy and I'm single at the time. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to get to work with all these hot girls and everything. And so I'm like, I'm in, Vince. You don't got to twist my arm, bro. I'll do that character. No problem. And so Vince McMahon's like, well, hold on here. At least think about it for 24 hours. And he goes into explaining why. He goes, I need to explain to you why. I want you to feel totally comfortable with the character, because if you don't feel comfortable, the fans aren't going to buy it. You know, if the fans aren't going to buy it, nobody's making money. And that made total sense to me, of course. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of a knee-jerk reaction. You know, yeah, I'll do that. Let me think about this for 24 hours. But 24 hours later, I was still like, yeah, I'm in. I thought about it 24 hours, longest 24 hours of my life. I'm in.
I want to ask you this, actually. So with the character itself and how it was going to be portrayed, how much credit does Vince Russo get? How much credit does Bruce Pritchard get? And how much did you put into the character as well?
Well, you know, so the character itself was a very general character, and it really came out of the mind of Vince Russo, who presented it to Vince, the basic idea. And then between those two, they came up with, okay, let's make this guy as the former adult film star turned pro wrestler. You know, he had long curly, you know, hair and just jacked and looked good. The hello ladies and the towel were something that were added to the character during the vignettes time. So the very first vignette we did, there was no inkling of a towel that being worn down at the ring. There was no inkling of hello ladies being the catchphrase. We only had the basic idea of what the character was. The very first vignette that we did, we were in the WWE television studios. I was in the shower. They had, you know, in the change room in the television studio, they had a bunch of showers and stuff. And so we're in the shower, and I'm in there with two score girls. And the vignette called for me to open the sliding door in the shower, step out, grab the towel off the rack, wrap it around my waist, and then go, hello, ladies. And so we did that first promo, and it started out with hello, ladies, because it was written into the script by Vince Russo. But no one ever considered this a catch line at this point. And so we recorded that vignette, and then when we went out to rewatch it back on the monitor to see how it came out, I saw me pick up the towel, and I go, towel. I said, Vince, you ever thought about maybe having me wear the towel down to the ring? No one's ever worn a towel wrapped around the waist if they just got out of a shower. And that was just something that I was watching it back, getting out of the shower. Well, why not just wear that down to the ring as well? No one's done that. And it was instant. Yes, that's good. Let's add that. It was just things that were happening along the lines like, hey, that's a good idea. Let's add that. And then when we went into the second vignette, it didn't have hello, ladies as the opening line. And Vince Russo, I think it was either Vince Russo or one of his production crew guys, I can't remember. I remember laying down on the couch with my hands behind my head, and this monitor is going on, and I was supposed to be like, oh yeah, it's so great watching this monitor. But it had me looking at the monitor going, oh, this is so great, as the camera's panning out. And now it sees me on the couch, my hands behind my back, watching the monitor of myself performing, just putting myself over. And then when I turn to the camera, I'm supposed to start cutting a promo and I'm coming to WWE. But just as we were getting ready to do that, it was either Vince or one of the guys that was next to him had said, hey, when you turn to the camera, do that same hello ladies line. And immediately I clicked, this should just be a tagline. Like, we should just do this with every vignette. And sure enough, on that second vignette, when I'm like, oh, I'm so good. Oh, I did that so well. And then I turn to the camera and I go, hello, ladies. And we watch that one back. That's the second time that we've opened up the vignette with hello, ladies. And it just instantly clicked. Let's just do that as an opening to every joke, you know? And so things were developed step by step as we were creating video content for the character.